A former U.S. intelligence analyst was arrested Thursday and charged with violating the Espionage Act for allegedly leaking documents about the secretive U.S. drone program. 31-year-old Daniel Hale was arrested in Nashville, Tennessee. He faces up to 50 years in prison. Hale was enlisted in the Air Force from 2009 to 2013, during which he worked with the National Security Agency and the Joint Special Operations Task Force at the Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, where he helped identify targets to be assassinated. He later worked as a contractor for the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. Hale is accused of disclosing 11 top-secret or secret documents to a reporter. The indictment does not name the reporter, but unnamed government sources have told media outlets the reporter is investigative journalist Jeremy Scahill of The Intercept. In 2015, The Intercept published a special report called The Drone Papers, exposing the inner workings of the U.S. military's assassination program in Afghanistan, Yemen, and Somalia. The publication's findings were later turned into a book called The Assassination Complex Inside the Government's Secret Drone Warfare Program. In a statement, The Intercept's editor-in-chief, Betsy Reed, said, quote, "The Intercept does not comment on matters relating to the identity of anonymous sources. In an indictment unsealed on May 9th, the government alleges documents on the U.S. drone program were leaked to a news organization. These documents detailed a secret, unaccountable process for targeting and killing people around the world, including U.S. citizens, through drone strikes. They are of vital public importance, and activity related to their disclosure is protected by the First Amendment." Reed went on to say, quote, "The alleged whistleblower faces up to 50 years in prison. No one has ever been held accountable for killing civilians in drone strikes," she said. After leaving the Air Force in 2013, Daniel Hale began publicly speaking out against the drone program. In November 2013, he spoke at a drone summit in Washington, D.C., organized by Code Pink.
Before I begin, one last thing. I just would like to, in a way, say I'm sorry. I'm not up here for any good reasons. And to the people in the audience who are victims or who are families of victims or have families who live in countries where U.S. militarism and specifically unmanned systems are conducting kinetic strikes. I'm sorry because I'm up here because I was, for a short period of time during my military career, as an analyst working with unmanned systems deployed to Afghanistan. And at the very least, you all deserve an apology.
In January 2014, Daniel Hale spoke at a rally outside the White House calling for the closing of the U.S. military prison at Guantanamo.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Daniel Hale. I was a veteran of the United States Air Force from 2009 until 2013. Through my experience in my deployment to Afghanistan, where I was primarily tasked with pursuing high-value targets through the utilization of unmanned systems, or otherwise known as drones, I came to learn of the thousands of prisoners who remain at the prison in Bagram Air Force Base to this day, who are in similar situations to those at Guantanamo, who are continually held indefinitely for benign or otherwise petty offenses or reasons not given to them whatsoever.
Daniel Hale was also featured in the documentary National Bird about drone warfare whistleblowers. It was directed by Sonia Kennebeck.
The people who defend drones and defend the way that they're used, they always say, you know, they protect American lives by not putting them in harm's way. But what they really do is they just embolden commanders. They embolden decision makers because there is no threat. There is no immediate consequence. They can do this strike and they can potentially kill this person that they're so desperate to get and to eliminate because of how dangerous, potentially dangerous they could be to the U.S. But if it just so happens that they don't kill that person or that some other people are involved in the strike and get killed as well, you know, there's no consequence for it. When it comes to high-value targeting, every mission is to go after one person at a time. But anybody else that's killed in that strike is just blanketly assumed to be an associate of the targeted individual. So as long as they can reasonably identify that all of the people in the field of view of the camera are military-aged males, meaning anybody who's believed to be of age 16 or older, they are a legitimate target under the rules of engagement. If that strike occurs and kills all of them, they just say that they got them all.
Drone whistleblower Daniel Hale speaking in the documentary National Bird. In August 2014, the FBI raided Hale's house, but the Obama Justice Department never filed charges. In the film, Hale spoke about the possibility of being indicted.
Personally, I just live every day trying to become more and more comfortable with the idea that it's probably going to happen, that I'm probably going to get indicted and I'm probably going to get charged with a crime, and that there's probably a real chance that I'll have to fight to stay out of prison.
He walked out in the gray light and stood, and he saw for a brief moment the absolute truth of the world. The cold, relentless circling of the intestate earth. Darkness implacable. The blind dogs of the sun in their running. The crushing black vacuum of the universe. And somewhere 200 animals trembling like ground foxes in their cover. Borrowed time and borrowed world and borrowed eyes with which to sorrow it.
And lo, for the earth was empty of form, and void, and darkness was all over the face of the deep, and we said, look at that fucker dance.
Do the fake NPR voice again. Welcome. Welcome to Heat Death of the Universe. A very serious podcast from South Korea. Seoul, South Korea, even. Today's date is October 21st, year of our Lord, 2020. It's 12:07 p.m. It's a Wednesday. We've got a bit more serious-minded topic today. We're going to talk about
espionage.
The Espionage Act and whistleblowing, and there's
leaks, the justice system.
Yes, leaking information and how people are punished for that very unjustly.
How people are poor vessels for information. Wait.
Huh?
Because the vessels leak.
Oh, I see.
I can't be serious, apparently.
That's all right. We've got a brand to be loyal to. The idea for this actually came up though because
I have a loose friend. I don't want to say that we're super close, but we've hung out. We did martial arts together. This guy Daniel Hale that I knew from my hometown of Johnson City, Tennessee. I guess I actually met him in the Piney Flats area, which is near Bristol. Well, shoved in between Bristol, Tennessee and Keenesport, Tennessee.
Ooh, go Bristol.
All part of the Tri-Cities, and everyone knows the half of Bristol that's in Tennessee is much better than the half that's in Virginia. Not that that really matters. The cities in both states.
Everybody knows this.
Of course, everyone does. Home of the biggest NASCAR track in the world. That's not true. It's a big NASCAR track, though. I don't know if it's the biggest one. I really don't. Other than there's a NASCAR track real close to where I grew up, I know that's about all I know about NASCAR, to be honest with you. But no, Daniel was a really nice kid. I was going to say kid because he's younger than me. And last year he was officially charged for leaking the drone papers to The Intercept because he had discovered that the U.S. government was using drones to not only assassinate people in foreign countries but also U.S. citizens, and decided that it was something that should be brought up to the press because he was against the drone program, and frankly I am too, but that goes without saying, I guess. And we just wanted to talk about how the Espionage Act and whistleblowing's handled in the United States, and how it's really just not something that is that you can appreciate. That's good. Anyway,
it's pretty bad shit. You should say that Daniel Hale was in the Air Force from 2009 to 2013.
Yeah, he was a security analyst for the Air Force. I think he joined in 2009. According to him, he was homeless at the time. So
right.
I joined out of desperation. There's a lot of poor people where I'm from. A lot of desperation.
And he wasn't working for the military when he leaked the information. I guess thankfully, because he'd probably be in like a military tribunal now, which is basically like a death sentence. But I don't know. That's just my gut feeling about it. Maybe not actual death, but I feel like they just disappear people sometimes. But
yeah. Well, some people might say it's fair. No one says that, I guess.
Well, he's in like pre-trial stages right now. It's been going on since last May, and it's just a lot of back and forth, like lawyerly stuff, like arguing about what evidence should be submitted and not. And his lawyers are actually arguing that the entire Espionage Act, which we'll get into a little later, like is unconstitutional, which it fucking is.
It is. It's a complete violation of the
First Amendment.
Oh, yeah, that one. The free speech one.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say
the Second Amendment.
It's a complete violation of all the amendments.
I'll have to think about it. That kind of blew my mind.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're giggling because I don't know, this shit sucks, and sometimes when stuff sucks, you just have to laugh.
Giggle when things are heavy.
Yeah. I mean, I guess on the bright side, if we want to find any bright side to his specific story, he hasn't been found guilty yet.
Not yet.
They haven't even technically started the trial, but he's charged with 5 violations, all which have a maximum of 10 years each. So he could spend presumably the rest of his life in jail, which is really horrible.
Which is absolutely garbage because, I mean, I've hung out with Daniel a few times. We've drank together. We did martial arts together when I was like 18, and I think he was like
bare knuckle
14.
Fight club fighting.
Yeah, there was some bare knuckle fight club fighting at that particular martial arts school ran by a kind of weird Christian ex-Green Beret.
Interesting.
It's a whole nother story.
Did he ever punch you in the face?
I think he kicked me in the face once. Might have even busted my nose when he kicked me in the face.
Yikes.
But, it was all in good fun.
Well, then, I don't know. I disavow him now.
It was all in good,
let him go to jail.
Angry teenage fun. Oh, no. At that time, I wanted to be kicked in the face.
I'm kidding, man. Obviously. So I don't know, maybe to just sort of focus this up a little bit more, because we're kind of all over the place. There's really not as many articles about this as there should be, I feel like. It's kind of, maybe we were talking about this before, hitting record, and I think maybe like his name is not on these lists of like people that have been charged under the Espionage Act, even though he has been, but maybe it's because the trial hasn't started yet, or he hasn't,
because it's still in pre-trial.
But then again, like Edward Snowden, he's on that list, and there was never any trial. I mean, he got the fuck out. So I don't know, maybe because it was just like a big famous case. But anyway, like this story seems to be very under the radar. Like, on YouTube, there's he's in a documentary, maybe two documentaries. One's about drone warfare in general, called what was it called? National Bird.
National Bird, yeah.
And yeah, oh man, we're all over the place.
It's okay.
But the point is that this should have more.
So more people should know about it.
Should know about it. Like you said that you found more stuff just searching his name on Twitter than you did on Google.
Yeah, more stuff came up when I searched his name on Twitter than Google.
Edward Snowden. So I was gonna say shouted him out. That's so fucking inappropriate. But he mentioned the case, basically, right? And
Edward Snowden said
he said it was
the government is forbidding Daniel Hale from defending himself before his jury. Those who pretend national security whistleblowers face prosecution in fair trials rather than prosecution by a broken system must be confronted with the facts.
Yeah.
Because the U.S. government basically said the leaker's motives are irrelevant. That's the quote. A leaker's motives are irrelevant, government says. So Daniel shouldn't have a say when he eventually does go to trial.
I mean, unfortunately, the way that these bullshit laws are written, his motives are kind of irrelevant. All that matters is that he stole government property and, disseminated it. The specific charges I don't have in front of me, but
I almost want to just read exactly what the government said about why Daniel shouldn't talk, and probably why any leaker shouldn't talk. But evidence of a defendant's views of military and intelligence procedures would needlessly distract the jury from the questions of whether he had illegally retained and transmitted classified documents, and instead convert the trial into an inquest of U.S. military and intelligence procedures.
Oh, we don't want that.
The defendant may wish for his criminal trial to become a forum on something other than his guilt, but those debates cannot and do not inform the core questions in this case, whether the defendant illegally retained and transferred the documents he stole. So basically,
that's the real crime, right?
That's the real crime. He decided to share fucked up shit the government's doing, and even though it's fucked up and no one's being punished for war crimes.
Yeah, that's one fact that popped up in the research of all this is and I guess it's totally unsurprising, but it sort of just like hit me in a way that I hadn't thought about. But like, not a single person has been punished in any way for any of these drone missions that have killed hundreds, I don't know, maybe thousands now in total of truly innocent people. Not to mention like people that even if they were committing some sort of crime, should be given a trial rather than a fucking missile to the head.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that Daniel says in one of the clips I saw of one of the documentaries. Like, what drone warfare does, is it used the word emboldens people, like these generals and whatnot, and the actual like people like flying the drones, because it's just, you're literally removed from
it turns it into like a video game.
Yeah, and they feel like they can just get away with anything because they can. I mean, they can legally.
Yeah.
So if they're so desperate to like get some supposed terrorist or whatever, they're like, well, we had to bomb the shit out of that wedding or that funeral.
Yeah, there were some casualties, but we got our target.
That's the weird thing.
Who cares if some children died?
That's the weird doublespeak about that comes from the military sometimes. Is like, we have like super precision instruments of war that can like target a single man from like the other side of the world, and then it's like, whoops, blew up a city.
I mean, they're super precise, but they also have very large blast radius, which makes it easier to be precise.
But then they're not precise at all. They're not precise. It's the opposite of precise. It's just such obvious bullshit. But why don't we just like quickly go through one of these shorter like overviews of what happened to him?
Daniel?
Yeah, and I think one of the things is left out of these more mainstream, like, okay, we got a Guardian article here. He was actually arrested twice because he was arrested under the Obama administration.
Okay.
By the FBI, I believe. Yeah. And, but they declined, like they declined the whoever the fuck, the attorney general, I guess it would have been. Yeah, they declined to actually charge him with anything, which I guess plus points for Obama on that one, I guess, even though like they did use the Espionage Act many times for similar reasons to other people. But maybe just not that one for whatever reason. And you know probably why, honestly, now that I think
it was
about
just
it.
Nearing the end of Obama's term.
It was nearing the end, but also like this is me. I'm going to put on my cynical hat, which I always take off.
Sure,
but
I can't imagine
it could have been
cynical hat.
They could have been just doing like this pragmatic, weighing their options, like charge this guy, and it blows up and becomes like a Snowden level thing, and then all of the drone stuff gets way more like traction in the mainstream news.
Yeah, especially since one of the biggest there's a lot wrong with Obama, but one of the biggest things is really the way he carried out drone warfare.
That's
which was probably like
it's one of his legacies. Basically.
I mean, he literally was like the master of drones.
Yeah. And I mean, you could argue that like, well, no, the technology was the same during Bush.
Yeah. I mean, well, it got better in Obama.
But I mean, like, different. I'm saying that like, for whatever reason, I mean, you know what, actually, it's kind of, it perfectly like shows the difference between the politician who says the quiet part loud, right? Like Bush is one of those, like he kind of accidentally reveals like the true motives of politicians and the military industrial complex, you know, like saying things like, oh, it'd be easier to be a dictator and shit like that. But Obama, he's smooth, he's cool. He doesn't say the quiet part loud ever.
Oh no, he's collected. He's playing the game.
Keeps it very quiet. And what are drones but if not very quiet and secretive? So his style of warfare went along with his style of governance as well.
Sure.
I'm sure I'm not the first person to make that parallel, but it just popped into my head. So, I mean, the basic story here is that maybe I don't need to read through this whole thing, but okay. Here's the Guardian article. Ex-NSA official charged with leaking classified drone documents. Daniel Hale is accused of giving up top secret files on drone warfare to a journalist at an online news outlet. A former National Security Agency official has been charged with giving classified documents on drone warfare to a journalist amid crackdown on government leaks by Donald Trump's administration. Daniel Hale is accused of leaking top-secret files that were published by an online news outlet. The outlet was not identified by prosecutors, but the files described appear to match those published in a series by The Intercept, which there will be a link to in our show notes, and
actually
it's definitely worth
a
checking
great
out.
series of articles.
Yeah, the drone papers. Hale, 31, was indicted by a grand jury on 5 charges related to the alleged leak. Each charge carries a maximum 10-year prison sentence. The U.S. Justice Department said Hale was arrested on Thursday morning and would appear in court later in the day. Authorities said Hale, of Nashville, Tennessee, worked as an intelligence analyst in Afghanistan for the NSA while serving as an enlisted airman in the U.S. Air Force from 2009 to 2013. He later worked as a contractor for the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the NGA, in Virginia, and allegedly began printing documents unrelated to his work. He allegedly provided at least 17 to the news outlet, 11 of which were marked secret or top secret. So, yeah, again, this happened when he was working as a contractor for the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency.
National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, so they use drones to collect intelligence.
Yeah, I guess that is
geospatial.
I guess is partially what drones do, yeah. And then, so the story goes is that he ended up making a connection with this journalist who, it's been revealed now, was Jeremy Scahill, who worked for The Intercept, and they communicated for, I think, several months, and eventually Daniel got these documents to him, and they were published in The Intercept. And it says here at the end of the article, so this article was written right after he was arrested in May 2019. The Intercept declined to comment on its sourcing. That's good.
Yeah.
But the site's editor-in-chief, Betsy Reed, said in a statement that federal authorities were going after, quote, whistleblowers who enable journalists to uncover disgraceful, immoral, and unconstitutional acts committed in secret by the U.S. government. At The Intercept, we stand firmly opposed to all such prosecutions.
I like The Intercept, but it does seem like they've bungled.
Bungled?
Bungled. That's the word I'm looking for. At least 3 of their whistleblowers they've kind of exposed to prosecution, which is sad. But I mean, that's not really their fault.
I don't know. I don't know the details of that.
I don't know the details of it either. It's just a risky.
I would
thing.
like to think they wouldn't.
I don't think
purposely
they purposely did it. I know they didn't purposely do it.
I mean, one thing I thought of, though, is say the FBI comes storming into Jeremy Scahill's apartment one morning and they're like, give up your source or you're fucking going to jail. I don't know. I mean, I'm basically just
you don't believe in the hard integrity of journalists?
I'm saying it doesn't seem like a far-fetched scenario.
Yeah, I mean,
police and FBI, authority, people in authority do shit like that all the time.
Police are fucking scary too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I would do, honestly, in that situation. If it was I don't know. I mean, I'm not suggesting that Jeremy Scahill did that. I'm just saying
think he did, but
I think what really happened was they just very easily decrypted the text messages that Daniel Hale was sending and figured it out.
Me too.
And I'm sure it was easy to follow some sort of literal paper. They said it was printing stuff out at work.
Yeah,
which seems a little reckless. Maybe.
It does.
In any case, it just sucks. It's terrible. And I guess that sort of shifts us into why these things are legally possible to treat people that are leaking vital information.
Well, the thing is, a lot of stuff that's classified or top secret, I wouldn't call it vital information. It's not. The only reason it's classified is because they know it would make people upset at what the government's act.
Well,
I sound like a conspiracy hat now, but I mean, so much of it's classified just because they don't want the public to be upset with how the government's handling things.
Well, of course, yeah. Like, it's not the enemies of the United States know that they have a drone warfare program and know that it's corrupt. Like, getting those documents, getting into the hands of like China or Russia wouldn't make a difference to anything. They wouldn't be like,
oh,
now we know the U.S. is doing this.
The
shit.
U.S. drone's doing this.
Like even like your average like centrist liberal idiot will admit that Obama was like the king of drones. You know, like that's just like common knowledge at this point.
I mean, it was cool at his second inauguration when he like stood on a drone and flew up to the podium to give his inaugural speech.
Until the second part of that, I was almost about to say, really? He stood on a drone? I don't remember that.
Yeah, he would like go, instead of riding Air Force One, he would like surf on a drone beside Air Force One.
What a cool guy. Did he have his aviators on? Was Biden on the other wing?
He was just holding like a nice drone remote control. Okay. Let's stop making fun of Obama now.
Whatever, have at it, man. So, yes, there's this thing that Congress put into law called the Espionage Act in 1917. And it was mainly, when it was created, it was meant to be for spies specifically, like actual spies, people spying on the government.
Like Russians and Germans and other bad guys from abroad.
Yeah. And though it was also like the real, maybe the more insidious purpose of it was to just shut down dissent from anti-war activists.
No history of that in America.
Yeah. So, like, one prominent example I read about was one of the only good political figures in U.S. history, Eugene Debs, the guy who started the Socialist Party in America. He was arrested for giving a speech. He gave a speech. That's all he did. He gave a speech about how the World War I is bad, and was arrested saying that, because the problem with this Espionage Act is that it's also just very broad and like vaguely worded to where like you could basically arrest anyone for almost anything. Like any criticism of the government technically would fall under the Espionage Act. They obviously just use it very selectively. So they're like, but like even me saying fuck America right now, like technically I could be arrested under the US Espionage Act. Really, like the way it's worded is insane.
It's almost like they want to word it that way to leverage what it can do.
Yeah, it's exactly like that.
Huh.
And then, that also wasn't enough. So, like, the following year, Congress also created the Sedition Act, which is basically the same thing, but just expanded to, like, lock people up for, like, even more benign things, like just having even like anti-government opinions or anti-war opinions. But yeah, Eugene Debs ended up serving, trying to find it right now. I'm getting lost here. All these tabs.
Wait, I got it.
How long was he in jail? Because I think his sentence was ultimately commuted at some point, maybe. Like the way that Chelsea Manning's was, like after 7 years.
Yeah.
Of like hell. Sorry, I'm just scrolling here for a second.
Oh, he was sentenced to jail in 1894, right? That was for leading the Pullman Railroad strike. He spent 6 months behind bars.
Yeah, he was like a big...
That's when he was educating himself on Karl Marx.
Big labor activist.
He spoke out against World War One. I mean, I'm pretty sure that he must have been friends with the War is a Racket people.
Yeah, very much so. I wouldn't be surprised if he and Smedley Butler's paths maybe crossed, or at least they rode each other or something. Because I do know that Smedley Butler did support a socialist politician, but it wasn't him, I don't think. Anyway, Eugene Debs did run for president 4 times in a row.
Wow.
He actually had the most successful third party run, I think, in American history.
More successful than old tyrant Ross Perot?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of like numbers of votes, I'm pretty sure. Too much information here.
1919 to 1921 is how long he was in prison, I think. So 2 years.
He got out of jail in 1921?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then he died.
Oh, right, here we go.
1926.
Warren Harding commuted his sentence, set his release for Christmas Day, and invited Debs to the White House. I've heard so damned much about you, Mr. Debs, that I am now very glad to meet you personally. Harding greeted him on December 26th. Leaving the meeting, Debs called Harding a kind gentleman with humane impulses, but declared that he'd told the president he would continue this fight for his principles, conviction, and ideals.
It's the last thing you should tell a president, that you're principled and you're going to continue fighting for your ideals.
Well, that's great, though. I mean, that's exactly the kind of guy he was, right? Yeah.
They don't make politicians like Eugene Debs anymore, do they?
Oh, this is weird, man. I didn't actually get to this whole total end of this article, but it says Debs died at 70 in 1926. His Canton speech remains a classic of American dissent. The actor Mark Ruffalo gave a dramatic reading from it in 2007.
Yeah, I saw there was a video for that.
Oh, there's a video on it there. I mean, I don't know. Whatever, Mark Ruffalo. I know. His big thing is anti-fracking, but I guarantee he's propping up Biden right now.
Well, you have to.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what all the
That's
good
right.
celebrities do.
That's right. Also, I wanted to announce officially, Joshua Nomen Mutashio. Never said that out loud before. I officially endorse Joe Biden for president of the United
Say it ain't
States.
so.
Because I'm going to criticize the fuck out of him every chance I get. And now nobody can tell me to vote blue no matter who. Also, my not voting doesn't fucking matter because I would be voting in Illinois, which is always going to go to the Democrats. So, yep, there it is.
You say that now.
Vote blue no matter who, folks.
Wait until Illinois goes for the third party.
Actually, I'll amend my statement. Vote blue no matter who or Green Party.
Just vote for who you feel like. I mean, both options suck. It's like going to a restaurant you hate because your friends wanted you to go there and being forced into ordering some menu item that you don't want.
Here comes the food analogy.
You gotta eat it, sadly. Yeah, I guess
We're on track, aren't we?
yeah, we're totally on track.
It's funny to me that I had this image in my mind of like this is going to be like a totally serious. I mean, it is serious, of course.
It's serious,
but like, whatever. We can't help but have a few laughs.
This is our brand. If you want a completely serious podcast, can I recommend Jacobin?
Yeah,
Those guys can be so dry.
They don't laugh, do they?
I don't think they like laughing. That's okay. I support Jackman and their seriousness.
Yeah, me too.
It's just not us.
Yeah, of course not. I mean, the name of our podcast is a joke. Most of our podcasts are about jokey things, whatever. Why are we talking about our podcast?
I don't know. It's very out of body sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Back to the Espionage Act, right?
It was passed in 1917.
Yes. Here we go. The Espionage Act's troubling origins. This is a good article to go through. Do you have that one?
Mm-hmm.
100 years ago, so this was written in 2017. 100 years ago, President Woodrow Wilson signed the Espionage Act into law, and since then, it has been used to criminalize the disclosure of national defense and classified information. Dissent stifling roots. At the turn of the 20th century, anti-immigrant, xenophobic statements dominated national rhetoric and was consequently reflected in the legislation crafted. On September 25th, 1919, the 28th President of the United States, Woodrow Wilson, gave his final address in support of the League of Nations in Pueblo, Colorado. And in his speech, he spoke of American immigrants with hyphenated nationalities. Any man who carries a hyphen around with him carries a dagger that he is ready to plunge into the vitals of this republic whenever he gets ready. So it's just like Trump, but eloquent.
Yeah, you don't want to be an Irish American or a German American or a Japanese American or a Korean American.
Well, it says here he specifically targeted Irish Americans and German Americans, which, man, what a bygone era, right?
I mean, the Irish Americans were enslaved, right? Or the Irish were enslaved. I always hear something about Irish people being enslaved. I don't
yeah,
really
there's
guess
there's a trope of Irish Americans who try to downplay the legacy of like African American slavery by being like, well, Irish people were slaves at some point in history too, and it's like, well, yes, lots of people were enslaved throughout history. That doesn't
mean it's good.
What's your point? How does that change anything about the fact of anyway? Wilson specifically, I just said that, targeted Irish Americans, German Americans, whom he perceived to be disloyal immigrants and potential spies. In fact, many state governments banned the teaching of German in schools since it was, quote, a language that disseminates the ideas of autocracy, brutality, and hatred. Yes, only German. Only in German can you find those ideas.
There are, something amazing about the German language is I've never studied German, but I know that they have words that express big ideals with just single words.
That's true, and a lot of times they're extremely long words, but yeah, it's true.
And there's a lot of German philosophers. So yeah, big ideals from Germany.
The nativism movement continued to grow from the, quote, know-nothing party, I'm not sure what that's referencing, to the Palmer raids as concerns about espionage and disloyalty swirled. So this is all to say that there's a lot of paranoia at the time about immigrants and spies trying to sabotage the United States government. Thus, the Espionage Act was born against the backdrop of World War I and amidst fears of subversion of American democracy. Its primary purpose was to deal with avoidance of the draft, sabotage of state activities, and espionage. What's funny is that espionage is last there. I know this is just the article, but
yeah.
Deal with the avoidance of the draft. Anyway.
If you're avoiding the draft, there's no draft anymore, but at that time, if you were avoiding the draft, you were probably an actor for a foreign power.
Or just someone who didn't believe in war or was afraid to go to the war.
No, who would be afraid of war, not want to go and prove themselves?
I mean, I guess
Man.
I guess there weren't as many pacifists back then. Maybe that's what we're like made to believe through like movies and shit.
I think there were just as many pacifists then as there are now.
I think so.
Maybe more, but I'd say around the same amount, to be honest, by percentage.
Let's see. But its subsequent interpretations led to the punishment of socialists, pacifists, and other anti-war activists. Most infamously during this period, former presidential candidate Eugene V. Debs, who we just talked about, was sentenced to 10 years in prison for a 1918 speech. 10 years.
10 years. For what? What did he do? How did he...
Because he denounced the Espionage Act.
Yeah, he
itself.
said it was unconstitutional.
So like,
because
we're going to use the act that you criticized for being unconstitutional to unconstitutionally imprison you.
Because he had this crazy thought that, there's some amendment, as they call them, that says people should have the right to free speech.
That, and he also said that the poor, the workers, the poor people, the common man, the people who would actually be going to fight wars,
me and you,
should be the ones who have some say into what those wars are, which is exactly like the Smedley Butler thing in War is a Racket. Like, except Smedley Butler laid it out like even more clearly. Like, this is how the government should operate. Like, the soldiers should basically vote on whether or not we go to war, and everyone else can fuck off.
Yeah.
I'm sure Debs probably thought something similar. The Supreme Court upheld his sentence, which was eventually commuted post World War I, which we went over. So, I mean, hey, he only served 2 years for giving a fucking speech.
Yeah, a speech.
Only 2. Only lost 2 years of his life.
Man. A speech in a country where you're supposed to be able to say what you want, especially when it's criticisms about like current events or current laws.
But you can't yell fire in a crowded theater.
Yeah, you can't.
Which is
true.
exactly the same as a socialist presidential candidate talking to 1,000 people and saying war is pretty bad, huh? Totally deserve to go to jail for that shit.
I'm surprised they didn't use it against Bernie. Come to think of it.
I mean, that's what I was talking about. There was like, technically they could arrest the whole, basically like half the country. Like, just go through someone's Twitter feed and be like, you're attacking the government. Like, I just don't, it's amazing that laws are on the books that are this like brazenly anti-free speech. But again, it's also not that amazing. It doesn't shock me. And again, they use them very selectively.
I wouldn't want to cause an uproar.
Yeah,
and they have to be more selective.
This is the exact shit that like Republicans go on and on about the Chinese Communist Party doing, right? Like throwing prisoners in jail, or throwing prisoners in jail, throwing journalists in jail for criticizing the government. Tell me how this Eugene Debs thing is any different. Tell me how the Daniel Hale thing is really any different.
What's that?
It's not at all. I mean, okay, Daniel Hale did technically break some rules.
Yeah,
but like, should the punishment for stealing like a document be? And the thing is it doesn't matter what the document said. The content of the document is irrelevant. Just as the way they say that his motivations are irrelevant, and that's complete bullshit. That's not the way you would like assess the situation if you're like in a rational, fair way. What documents did he steal? Oh, these documents that exposed like these basically like these atrocities that shouldn't be happening. No, we don't care what's on the documents. Doesn't matter. They're government property. Even if he stole a pen, that's government property. So like, what, you get 5 years for stealing office supplies too, maybe? Anyway, here we go. A little bit more about how they modified this thing with the act. The Espionage Act was further modified by the Sedition Act of 1918, but those amendments were ultimately overturned on March 3rd, 1921, when World War I ended. Oh, I didn't realize that. So I guess the Sedition Act is not in effect
It is
anymore?
not.
Okay. Well, the Sedition Act sought to criminalize statements during the war that were, quote, disloyal, profane, scurrilous, or abusive about the form of government of the United States. How do people not look at a sentence like that and draw the direct parallel to, like, Saudi Arabia, North Korea, China?
What are you talking about, man? The United States has these types of laws because there's nothing that you could criticize about the great U.S. of A.
It's just in case.
It's like, how can you criticize streets paved with gold?
Yeah.
God, I remember as like a kid being told that foreigners believed our streets were paved with gold. It seems like such fucking nonsense now. Even as a kid, I was like, really?
Yeah, that's pretty wild shit.
How fucking lucky we were to be Americans. Come on.
That sounds like someone exaggerating a bit to a child.
Yeah.
Those found in violation of the rules set forth in the act were subject to a fine of up to $10,000. And back in those days, that must have been like, what, $1 million? I don't know.
It was a lot of money.
And a prison sentence of up to 20 years. You could go to jail for 20 years for saying something profane about the government.
Sure.
Or I shouldn't say could. You still can. And the thing is that they, I'm not going to be able to go through the whole like history of it, but like this act has been amended like a lot over the years.
The Espionage Act is how McCarthy was able to do most of the Red Scare stuff.
Yep. Mostly all under the Espionage Act, including electrocuting to death this couple.
Oh,
they were accused of spying for the Soviet Union. I had their names up here.
Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. Rosenberg?
Yes, and as I said, like off mic, even if they were guilty of that, like death, really, death is the punishment. Like for like handing a few documents. Anyway, I mean, like there's like serial killers that don't get the death penalty, but like these people were like gruesomely given the electric chair. Like I read about it, and like Ethel Rosenberg was just shocked, I think 4 or 5 times before she finally died. It was just like torturing this person. And there's some other famous uses of the Espionage Act were where is it? Daniel Ellsberg, who he
spoke out against the Vietnam War.
Yeah, and he leaked the Pentagon Papers, which showed like all of the secret bombing campaigns in Cambodia. And I think he ultimately was not jailed. I didn't look too far into his story. I don't remember.
I think... Yeah, I don't think he was jailed either. I'll check.
Because weirdly, in those days, like... people leaking this kind of stuff was actually had more support. Like
there was more
public
support at the
public
time,
support,
and also,
right?
Like I mean, because I think the public was mostly against the Vietnam War. Especially by the time he was leaking everything,
it was like 1971, I believe, when he leaked the papers, and I think by then it was like it wasn't in Nixon's self-interest to like toss this guy in jail.
Oh, so they the government actually bungled the case because they gathered their evidence illegally, and Ellsberg's lawyer was able to get them off by basically proving that the government had gathered their information illegally.
Oh, right. So it was, yeah, I guess it was like on technicality, he avoided jail time. Unlike, say, Chelsea Manning, who served 7 years.
Way longer than she deserved.
And now the most recent, big example is
Daniel or Julian.
Yeah, I mean, Julian Assange is overshadowing. But the thing is like, I mean, actually, they didn't do the same exact thing, but like in principle, they kind of did. I mean, Julian Assange is just, he's been in the public eye for so long. He founded this organization that, like, its whole business is leaking things. But I don't know. It's kind of weird to me that there should be more stuff in the news about Daniel Hale. And maybe once the actual trial starts, maybe there will be.
Everyone's too busy criticizing
Donald Trump,
the election, and whatever craziness goes on in the public eye.
Yeah, I guess I shouldn't. I'm not surprised actually at all. It just sucks that the journalistic priorities are.
I think most people don't want to think about the 14 wars the United States are in, and drone warfare, and how we're still using them to,
and possibly putting a 31-year-old
civilians.
A 31-year-old guy away for 50 years.
Yeah, a 31-year-old guy
because he gave some papers to The Intercept.
Who's smart and conscionable and principled from.
And the thing is,
the guy I know he's a good guy.
I mean, even if he is a bad guy, it's ridiculous the weight that goes with these charges. That's the thing that drives me most crazy about it is that they don't.
In the defense of these charges, just hear me out here. They're still not as heavy as drug charges. And by that I mean, this is just fucked. You shouldn't get 50 years for basically deciding to make a cautionable action where you say, hey, people are being killed and they shouldn't be.
I mean, yeah, I know what you're saying.
The drug charges thing was more of, it's actually fucked up that people can get charged for...
That people can go to jail for any amount of time for, possession, I don't want to... Oh, man.
Sorry, my brain...
No. I'm thinking... Because, you heard me earlier today,
about
getting
the charges for crack.
Really pissed off at Joe Biden because... I just saw a video clip of him on the floor of the Senate. I believe this was during the 94 crime bill time. It could have been in the 80s, though. I don't remember.
The before times.
Either way, he did these things. He did these things in both times, in 86 and 94. That's when they started, disproportionately the punishment for possession of crack cocaine versus the possession of powder cocaine. That whole idea that maybe a lot of people are aware of vaguely, but I wasn't even aware of the true details of it till recently. In the 80s they made it 50-1. So if whatever amount of crack cocaine you had in grams, you could have 50 times as much in powder cocaine and get the same charge.
Well, that makes sense.
But then in the 90s, they doubled it to 100-1. And then, so this thing that this clip of Biden and the video that I saw, I'll link to it. I don't know, it's not really connected to what our theme today, but whatever. Getting it off my chest. Is a video of Biden holding a quarter in his hand, he even says $0.25, and he's proudly saying this shit. He's like, if someone is found with even an amount of crack cocaine, it's I think it was 5 grams, which is I read elsewhere it was the weight of 2 pennies. He's
It's not much.
He's like smaller than the quarter that I'm holding in my hand right now. 5 years minimum sentence, no matter what, and that's enshrined in the law.
A good example of 5 grams is. So I used to like to lift weights, and I would take creatine. And the recommended daily dose of creatine is 5 grams, which is, in layman's term, a teaspoon.
Okay, a teaspoon of powder. Damn. I mean, the 2 pennies thing puts an idea in my mind as well.
Yeah. It's a very small amount. I mean, it'd probably still get you high, though.
Yeah. And in the video I was watching, though, the clip of Biden saying this, right next to it was some of the leaked text messages that have come out in the Hunter Biden leaks. And it's like his dad like saying like, "I love you unconditionally," and Hunter Biden going, it was something like, "Oh, my beautiful son, I hope to see you soon." And he's like, "Oh, good morning, I'm in fucking rehab." And then his dad just being like, "Oh, I'll always love you, and you're gonna beat this thing." And like, he's so understanding about the drug problems of his son.
Joshua, this is something, we're real off topic, but this is something important to realize. People who have parents who can afford to send them to nice rehabs over and over again do not deserve to go to prison. But if your parents cannot afford to send you to nice rehabs over and over again, of course you need to be taken out of society and put to work.
Yeah, that is basically the rationale.
I think that I just broke the Espionage Act because I'm criticizing the way that we treat rich people who can afford rehab and poor people who cannot afford rehab. Oh, there's even like dark stuff for rehab though, because they have like, oh god, that's just something I should do an episode of. But I was going to talk about like supplemental rehab where like it's kind of free, but they actually are kind of like miniature slave camps where they have like the people in these rehabs like just do tons of work for them.
I've heard about that a little bit. And,
it's gross stuff.
But even the really posh like celebrity ones, I've seen one where I saw like maybe it was like a Vice documentary or something, like a short documentary where they went to this rehab and like the guy was like a real quack, and it was, and like the amount of money they charged to stay at this place was insane. So, but of course, this is a for-profit thing, right? This is a business. You want return customers, right? Or you want at least a steady stream of customers. I mean, I guess like, but they looked into it and they saw like the success rate of these rehabs, and they're like, the success rates are so low.
I mean,
my point is that they purposely do a bad job so that people have to just keep coming back.
That, or they figure out how to feed into addictive personalities, and they offer the rehab as an addiction instead of the drug as an addiction.
Right. That's also the thing. I mean, I guess AA doesn't charge you money, at least. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's try to get back to whatever the real theme here, which is drones, whistleblowing, Espionage Act. So let's take a look at these drone papers. There's a few. There's one here called the Kill Chain, which has like a
basically gives the president 60 days to decide if someone should die or live. No trial, no warning,
and no other.
Do they deserve to be droned or not?
There's no other sort of like committee process. It's singularly up to one man.
Yeah.
I mean, presumably he's being informed by generals and whatnot. Okay, even just looking here at the chain of command illustration, right? Do you see it?
Yeah.
Step 1, choosing a target. It looks like some task force begins that process. Then it gets kicked up to a general. CENTCOM commander, then kicked up to another general. These are all very old, shriveled white men, by the way.
Of course they are.
Their faces here. Then it gets up to the Secretary of Defense, who kicks it up to... Well, there is a committee in between the Secretary of Defense and the President. There's this committee, which at the time, during Obama's administration, involved Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Timothy Geithner, that monster, Secretary of Treasury. What the fuck does the Secretary of Treasury get a say in who we drone?
Well, I mean, drones are expensive.
Oh, so he's the money man. Got to weigh in on that, huh? Secretary of Energy is part of it.
Drones take energy?
Yeah. Director of... Oh, man, I got to make this bigger. Those words are too small. Getting real into the... Okay, here we go. Ambassador to the UN, Susan Rice. And then it's all these like terrorism bullshit people and the Attorney General. Then step 2, taking a strike. There's another faceless task force and some more generals. And the ambassador to Yemen and the president of Yemen. But wait, they're bombing Yemen.
Yeah, but I think because of the AMFU, I think that's what it was called, they were allowed to basically target anyone who had alleged connections to Al-Qaeda.
So they would get some sort of approval from the president of Yemen basically to bomb Yemen.
Yeah.
Oh, so they weren't just recklessly riding in like cowboys. Wow, they really went through all the legal channels to do this
kind
shit.
of.
No, I'm saying, yeah, it's still bullshit. But yeah, right up at the top of the pyramid here is the president. And yeah, and let's imagine what this looks like currently. It's probably even more horrifying, but I don't remember. I don't have the numbers at the top of my head. And I mean, definitely the drone striking has not really like slowed down, I don't believe, since Trump's taken over. I'm not sure.
It hasn't. I think it's actually rose or stayed at basically the same level.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess Obama had 2 terms to rack up his numbers. So you can't
as long as we have this type of warfare, it'll just keep rising and rising because it's like another presidential power that they have that they can use and they will use.
Oh man, I just had the realization of like senile Joe Biden having this power.
I mean, he'll use it the same way everyone else has been using it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess okay, there is the guy at the top who ultimately has to say yes or no, but like, you know, we just listed off, there's all these other people, these generals, this committee.
So like
but that just means that they clearly have their own like military industrial complex agenda altogether. I mean, that's why the Secretary of Treasury is involved in this shit.
I mean, I think the sad thing with these drone strikes, and like it goes through all these committees, but all of this is like classified. They don't explain who gets targeted, how they get on the kill list really is not made public knowledge. There's no trial.
Yeah.
And like I think this quote from Amrit Singh, the senior legal officer of the Open Society Justice Initiative, is like kind of like states what's so like fucked up about this. He said, the mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters of the people who were killed in these drone strikes want to know why. And goes on, we're left with no explanation as to why they were targeted. In most cases, no compensation. And the families are aware of no investigation. So like, it's just like, these people are being killed just on a whim, basically. Like some politicians, some random corporate president, just like, okay, these people are obviously bad for the government, They're bad for the United States of America. They must die. And it's been documented. It's not just like Al-Qaeda. It's not just like enemies of the state. It's also civilians, and they don't tell you why. And that's why it's like gross, because these people aren't getting trawls. They're not like in the news. It's just like, there's our target. Let's execute them.
Yeah, it's like faceless actors and faceless victims. It's all quite horrible, disgusting. Okay, this is interesting. So one of the countries we regularly strike with drones is Somalia, and the Somalia's Minister of National Security told The Intercept that the United States alerted Somalia's president and foreign minister of strikes, quote, sometimes ahead of time, sometimes during the operation. Normally we get advance notice. Oh, that's nice. He said he was unaware of an instance where Somali officials had objected to a strike, but added that if they did, he assumed the U.S. would respect Somalia's sovereignty. I gotta guess that they would not. I mean, that's another thing to consider about these drone strikes as well, though, that I hadn't before, is that corrupt officials in the countries being bombed are in on this as well.
Yeah.
I kind of had the assumption that we were just like going in willy-nilly, because what the fuck is Yemen going to say about it, you know? I think we probably do that also in certain cases, like they just said about the Somali thing. He's not aware that they ever objected to it, but it's like, even if they had, do you think it really would have stopped the drone strike from happening? Please don't drone strike us. Oh, okay. Now that you say please don't, we won't.
We'd prefer if you didn't hit this area of our country. You know, 'cause there's hospitals there.
Like, we'd prefer if you shut the fuck up, because we're America.
Yeah.
Like, can you... I don't know. Just... This is a very unoriginal thought, but like, just imagine North Korean drones like flying over Tennessee, or for me, like, you know, Illinois, whatever. Like,
No, I can never really, it's hard for me to imagine any country being brazen enough to attack U.S.
no, I mean, it's like, it's not going to happen, not anytime soon, but just as a thought experiment, you know, like how that would feel to you.
It'd be horrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason these people are angry. The ones who are angry. I completely understand why they might be upset and want to, act out
Retaliate.
against the United States of America.
Defend themselves. Yeah.
It makes sense. And I mean, this is what the strikes have been going on since 2008, 2007, earlier.
Probably even earlier. I'm not exactly sure the history of drone strikes, but I think it came into the picture mostly under George W. Maybe the end of Clinton. I'm not sure.
12.
I mean, it wasn't in the
2003, first drone strike.
Okay.
The first.
It wasn't
The first drone strike outside of the declared war zone was conducted in 2003.
Okay.
And it wasn't until 2013 that the White House released a set of standards and procedures for conducting strikes.
It's funny they say outside of a declared war zone, because we haven't had a declared war since World War II.
The Iraq War was declared, right?
No, not officially.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
I know the Vietnam one wasn't. For some reason, I thought the Iraq War was. For some reason,
there was a vote in Congress. There was a resolution, but it wasn't Congress officially It's just, I mean, it's a technical thing, but like they did not officially declare war on the country of Iraq. They just basically, what they did is much worse, actually. The resolution just gave like huge increased powers to the executive branch, which just meant George W. Bush could direct the army anywhere he wanted them to go, do whatever he wanted. So yeah, that's what Joe Biden voted for and pushed for really hard, by the way. I'm not getting off this Joe Biden thing, sorry. But I've endorsed him, so now I'm allowed to criticize him.
Who else can you endorse?
A little guy named Donald J. Trump.
He is little. Little hands, right?
That's what they say. Fuck, man, this is overwhelming amount of information. I thought we were pretty prepared, but I guess maybe we're not.
Yeah.
But also, we didn't, I mean, the point of this wasn't to get deep into like drone warfare either. It was more about whistleblowing.
Whistleblowing and bringing up the way it's prosecuted and why it's bad. Well, I mean, not why whistleblowing is bad, but the way it's handled in the United States.
Yeah. The Espionage Act is a fucking disastrous piece of legislation that needs to go away. There is there's some petitions you can sign, folks. I'll put those in the show notes as well. I mean, it feels so futile signing them, but it's something.
Worth doing.
It takes 10 seconds, like there's one to petition to stop the prosecution of Daniel Hale, and there's another one I found which is basically trying to overturn the Espionage Act. I'll put them both in there.
Moving to other whistleblower stuff, we have, there was Bernie Sanders, never a whistleblower, but he did pledge to end the practice of prosecuting whistleblowers under the Espionage Act, which, as far as I know, the only presidential candidate to do so.
Yeah, I'm sure.
There were the Panama Papers, which I feel like were incredibly underplayed in the news and absolutely disgusting. Joe Biden is definitely in love with the Espionage Act, and he will continue the tradition of Obama and Trump and, I guess, Bush of carrying out sentencing of whistleblowers.
And Woodrow Wilson and
McCarthy and...
it would have been... who was president in 1950?
That guy.
It was either Eisenhower or Truman. Which one? I can't remember.
Truman. It was Truman.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, Bernie Sanders did say that. He pledged to a lot of good stuff, and he never will be able to.
We could have had him. In a different timeline, they do have him.
Yeah. Out there in the multiverse. I do like how matter of fact Sanders was about it when asked about it. Let's see. Asked if it's appropriate to prosecute whistleblowers using the Espionage Act, Sanders said, "Of course not." That's all. He's just like, are you dumb? Are you fucking stupid? No.
Like, I'm old enough to remember Debs giving a speech. I was there when he was arrested.
He would have just missed it, actually.
Yeah.
Wait, when was Bernie born? It was in like the 30s, right?
Yeah, he would have missed it.
Yeah, Eugene Debs died in 26, looks like.
Oh, no.
Although that is his like biggest hero, right?
He was not born in the 30s. He was born in the 40s.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. We're in the 2020s.
I forget when we were.
I perpetually think it's like 1998.
I always think it's funny that people talk about how old Bernie is, but I mean, he was born in 41. Biden was born in 42, and Trump was born in 46.
They're all basically the same age.
They're all basically the same age.
Well, you notice that a lot of the shit about Bernie's age kind of died down when Biden became the front runner against him, because they're like, oh shit, Biden's only like less than a year younger than him or something like that. And also Biden is like clearly filled with dementia, but
but Trump is too, so it's good for them to like battle it out.
He is, but I'm going to say this again, man. Biden is way more demented than Trump, like just in pure like neurological terms. Like Trump is an idiot.
I've seen Trump forgetting things more recently, though.
He does forget things, but like he doesn't like go on those rambling like reminiscent stories and stuff, and like
that's true. He goes on his rambling tirades,
but he speaks more like with a smoothness. I mean, the words that he's saying are fucking stupid, but they're like strung together with like
intent,
some like cognitive abilities that Biden doesn't seem to have. Anyway, it doesn't fucking matter. Man, there's so much to talk about, and maybe that's why.
That's
hitting a wall.
Yeah, I was just thinking that this may be a bigger subject than we realized when we undertook talking about this. The thing is that people are being charged for whistleblowing, and it increased under Obama, and it's increased even more so during Donald Trump. There are
I'm not sure if that's true.
Which one?
That it's increased more under Trump.
It has.
Okay. Because okay, maybe in general with whistleblowers, but using the Espionage Act specifically to get whistleblowers, that it was done more times. But also, again, that was over 8-year period as opposed to a 4-year period. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Maybe I could just be basing this off like something I read in Wikipedia. Like, let's see here, modern day. One, two. I mean, I guess these are just like the bigger names. So I don't really know exactly the true numbers, but
I guess what I was trying to say, it's a good thing when people release information that is, unconscionable and that we should know about, whether it be how businesses are offshoring to avoid taxes, or how we're using drones to kill civilians. Like one of the drone strikes killed a British civilian who happened to have a Islamic name. Or anything else that's just like information to some degree should be free. When it's being classified, it's usually not. I don't think it's often being classified to protect the public. I think more often it's being classified to protect the people in power.
Of course, yeah, definitely.
And these leakers or whistleblowers, whatever we call them, who are being charged by the Espionage Act for basically exercising their free speech, it's disgusting, and it's something that I think if it changed, the United States would be better as far as that goes. People should be able to speak about what they've seen, what they do, etc. I mean, it's like not necessarily the same thing, but like say Donald Trump being diagnosed with COVID recently and all of the doctors having to sign an NDA. It's kind of fucked up that they can be made to sign non-disclosure agreements about such a high-profile thing where really the public should probably know what's going on with their elected leader.
Yeah, I think I also think that like to some extent maybe like I guess like I'm kind of playing devil's advocate a little bit here, but like I guess some of these rules, some of these things that that Daniel Hale is being charged with, like government theft and dissemination of what classified information. I guess those things should be laws, but just the way they're carried out is the problem. Like I've said already, like they don't take into account the content of the information or the intent of the person. We take intent into account in like assault and murder. Like that's why there's degrees of murder, right?
Sure.
But we don't with shit like this. It's crazy. It's just like this blunt, heavy sentence, like 10 years for each of those 5.
They don't even want intent to be spoken about.
Yeah, they've blocked it from being entered into the trial, which is wild.
It is wild.
It's like, no, you can't talk about what you meant to do. Why? Why? I mean, I know their reasoning. Why? It's a distraction from the real issue, which is he stole stuff.
Yeah, they want to make sure that people see clearly in black and white terms and to never think about the gray areas or, the motives.
Yeah. It also reminds me of like how outraged people were against Julian Assange because of the Podesta email leaks.
Sure.
Because supposedly that's what cost Hillary the election or whatever. But they never confront the actual content of the emails. They're just like, he exposed those bad emails. It's like, well, what about the fact that they were bad emails? Why aren't we talking about that?
They're bad emails.
Why aren't we talking about that? Why is it just assumed that like it doesn't matter if the what the content of the emails is? Like all you heard about was like the emails, period. It's like no. It matters what they are. Like I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just there's nothing outrageous or surprising about it. People responding that way, but it is funny to see people like flip flop on certain like figures. Like Julian Assange is a pretty good example. Like the left, quote unquote, the left liked him a lot when he was exposing the crimes during the Bush era. And now suddenly it's he's a lawbreaker because he's exposing the Clintons and
he's
such.
A dirty libertarian.
The thing is he was exposing both Democrat and Republican like crimes and whatnot, even back in the Bush days. But he was still kind of like lauded as a hero. At least that's the way I remember it. By like
he was.
By even like mainstream liberal types. But yeah, as soon as it becomes inconvenient, he's an enemy of the state that should be locked up. People are like really rabidly hate him now.
In all fairness, every presidential candidate we've had in my lifetime, I would classify as an enemy of the state.
In what way?
I mean, they're just.
You mean
killers.
like in the technical?
In the technical, they've made things worse for everybody globally.
Oh yeah, they're not good for the country.
For people, not just our country. They seem to be bad for the entire world. Maybe I'm just being too cynical about it.
No, I think this is a pretty good case to make for that. Some are worse than others, of course. Yeah. feel like I've run out of steam.
Let's just end with some final thoughts on whistleblowing, the drone papers, the Panama Papers, which we didn't really discuss much, but maybe if you're listening to this, you already know about the Panama Papers.
Yeah, the Panama Papers are...
They basically just detail financial...
It just shows us what we already knew, which is that lots and lots of individuals and corporations are fucking dirty and do dirty, tricky shit. You know, shell corporations, money laundering, fraud,
tax havens.
Yeah, the Panama Papers were like some 11 million documents, all showing this very clearly, and like basically no one has like paid any sort of price for it. Of course,
they never will.
I think a few people did a little bit, but not much. I mean, I think the motivation of this whole episode was to talk about Daniel Hale, and I guess we've kind of said like mostly all there's to say.
Yeah, we've went all over the place to realize this, which is part of the Heat Death of the Universe character.
Yeah, I
to
mean,
explore things as they at least amble through my brain. But the thing with Daniel, I know Daniel. Daniel's a good guy. I like Daniel, and I think that his motives, which probably won't be discussed in his court case, because I have a feeling the government will get their way on that.
You think Biden will commute?
Very good.
You think Biden would commute his sentence?
Oh no chance.
Yeah,
I mean, Biden in record is generally just as against
leaks,
people leaking government information as Trump or any other career politician.
Yeah, Biden made it his personal job to make sure that Edward Snowden couldn't get asylum in basically anywhere. He
called up countries like directly, right?
Yeah, and Snowden applied for asylum in like over 20 something countries, and basically every single one turned him down. And basically because Joe Biden like threatened these countries with like withholding funding, or actually let's just look at that real quick before we sign off.
Okay.
All right. Edward Snowden. Joe Biden told countries there'd be, quote, consequences if they granted him asylum. Edward Snowden, who in 2013 leaked information on how the NSA conducted surveillance on the public, said in an interview Monday that former Vice President Joe Biden warned foreign countries that there would be consequences if they granted him asylum. During a segment on the 11th Hour with Brian Williams on MSNBC, Snowden said both Biden and then Secretary of State John Kerry blocked him from getting asylum. Thanks, John Kerry. Biden's campaign team didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. The former vice president did ask Ecuador to turn down an asylum request from Snowden in 2013, the Associated Press reported. The former president of Ecuador said he had a, quote, friendly and very cordial conversation with Biden about the matter. White House officials said in 2013 that they had warned foreign governments that Snowden was facing felony charges and urged them not to aid his international flight. Snowden, who is currently in Russia, said he has applied for asylum in 27 countries, including France, Germany, and Norway, but without luck. Every time one of these governments got close to opening their doors, the phone would ring in their foreign ministries, Snowden said in the interview with Williams. And on the other end of the line would be a very senior American official. It was one of two people, then Secretary of State John Kerry or then Vice President Joe Biden. They would say, look, we don't care what the law is. We don't care if you can do this or not. We understand that protecting whistleblowers and granting asylum is a matter of human rights, and you could do this if you want to. But if you protect this man, if you let this guy out of Russia, there will be consequences. This ends on a funny note, actually. When MSNBC's Williams asked if Snowden would vote for Biden in 2020, the former NSA contractor laughed, but said he isn't taking a position on the upcoming presidential election.
Can Snowden still vote?
That's what I was going to say, too, actually.
I guess he hasn't been officially,
he's not a felon
convicted,
officially.
right?
Yeah.
Convicted.
I guess he could maybe send in a ballot. Oh, that wasn't the end of the article, but anyway, that gets to my point about Biden like pulling all these strings to like stop whistleblowing.
So if it's the Secretary of the State and Vice President calling in to request this in a Biden administration, if we get another Snowden, or if for some reason someone like Daniel ended up with trying to seek asylum in a foreign country, we would have Kamala, top cop, calling in saying there will be consequences, and we'd probably have whichever GOP member Biden chooses as Secretary of State also calling in. Mitt Romney?
Yeah, I was just going to speculate on that too. It does tie in nicely to that the news that came out today about Biden, the list of people Biden is considering to put in his cabinet that are all Republicans.
I mean, why wouldn't they all be Republicans? He's basically running for the Lincoln Party? Is that what they're calling themselves? The Lincoln Foundation?
Lincoln Project. But yeah.
Whatever. I think
the thing that liberals fell for, like total suckers.
I think the thing that neo-libs have wanted for a long time is to reclaim the Republican name for themselves. And this Lincoln Project is the way that they can finally become the conservative party they've always dreamed of being.
Them. I mean, the Lincoln Project, right? Is just a bunch of hardcore conservatives that are like tricking liberals into giving them money. That's all it is.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, I don't know much about it beyond that actually. Anyway, but
just a bunch of never Trumpers who also support Trump.
It's just a think tank, right? But
everything's so.
I'm gonna guess John Kasich because he was on the list. That would be fucking funny if John Kasich was Secretary of State. Or who else would be funny? Ted Cruz. Ron Paul.
Jesus, Ron Paul is not on the list.
No, but I was just saying it would be funny.
Didn't he have a stroke?
He did. It was caught on camera.
Oh, that was great. I watched it.
I saw
it.
Made
me laugh. Wait, that sounds fucked up.
I felt I don't know. Like people were like, "Don't laugh at this." It's like this guy is pretty evil. Like, come on.
I mean, he was anti-war. I always liked that about him.
Was he though? Because there's that story, which we don't have time to go in the whole thing, and I don't really remember clearly anyway. But basically, there was like Ron Paul and like a bunch of these libertarian guys like conspired. See, these guys should have gotten fucking put in jail under the Espionage Act. They conspired to like overthrow part of America, like militarily. And they talked about it on some Chapo episode, like an early Chapo episode. I have to track that down again. But yeah. Oh yeah, I wonder, like, the guys who tried to kidnap the governor. I don't think they're being charged under the Espionage Act.
No, but they are being charged.
They're being charged, but they're not.
Espionage Act.
But they should be, don't you think?
Probably.
I mean, it's definitely, if the Espionage Act is basically anything that tries to like criticize or discredit the government,
undermine the United States government,
they're planning to kill a fucking politician.
Sure. and invoke a civil war.
Invoke a civil war, exactly. Also, okay, now I'm just thinking of all kinds of things that would fall under this. Rick Perry, when he was governor of Texas, he mused out loud many times about seceding.
Oh yeah, I mean,
that seems to me a threat against the country, against the state of the union.
It's a good-natured conservative threat.
I'm just saying, man, like, we're just saying the most obvious stuff, I guess, but like, it's no accident that the people that this gets used against, let's quick look. Are any of them right wing?
No.
Any of them?
Never.
As far as I can tell, none of them have been. And like, yeah, like right wing guys, like those militia guys, they are being charged, but they weren't being charged with this Espionage Act because this thing was created specifically in its conception in 1917 to go after socialists and anti-war people. But I don't know. Any final thoughts? Or I think you were kind of giving your final thought there.
Final thoughts. Check out the links. Sign the petitions for Daniel. I don't really know if these petitions help anything, but
they can't hurt.
They can't hurt. And
what if they did hurt?
They don't.
I know. Just
and yeah, the Espionage Act. It sure does suck.
And do what we didn't really do, and to take the time to look at at least some of the drone papers. They're pretty illuminating. But that, that wasn't the main point of this episode anyway. So I'm not sorry for not reading all of them. But yeah, I guess just shout out to Daniel Hale, really. Like, I don't know if there's any possible way he could hear this or if he would care. He would care, right?
Probably. I don't know.
I mean,
does anyone really care?
We need a listenership. I gotta stop talking about the podcast on the podcast. I hope he can get out of this somehow. It really sucks, the whole situation. And if Joe Biden does win, we should pressure the shit out of him to overturn this kind of stuff.
Yes.
Even if it is maybe kind of hopeless, but let's take a quick break and then recommend. General recommendations. I would like to recognize.
Recognize? What are we recognizing?
You better recognize that I have a recommendation. Actually, technically two. There's a novel written by an author I really like named Alexandra Kleeman, and it's her first novel called You Too Can Have a Body Like Mine. I'll just read the synopsis because it's better than me fumbling around. An intelligent and madly entertaining debut novel reminiscent of The Crying of Lot 49, White Noise, and City of Glass that is once a missing person mystery, an exorcism of modern culture, and a wholly singular vision of contemporary womanhood from a terrifying and often funny voice of a new generation. And the synopsis of the book is: a woman known only by the letter A lives in an unnamed American city with her roommate B and boyfriend C, who wants her to join him on a reality show called That's My Partner. A eats, or doesn't, the right things, watches endless amounts of television, often just for the commercials, particularly the recurring cartoon escapades of Candy Cat, the mascot for an entirely chemical dessert, and models herself on a standard of beauty that only exists in such advertising. She fixates on the 15 minutes of fame a news celebrity named Michael has earned after buying up his local Wally supermarket's entire and increasingly ample supply of veal. Meanwhile, B is attempting to make herself a twin of A, who hungers for something to give meaning to her life, something aside from C's pornography addiction, and becomes indoctrinated by a new religion spread throughout a web of corporate franchises that moves her closer to the decoys that populate her television world, but no closer to her true nature. It's a very odd book, as that might lead you to understand, but I really liked it when I read it a couple of years ago, and I would also like to recommend her follow-up publication to the novel, which was a book of short stories called Intimations. It's also really good, pretty experimental, I guess. I think she even studied under Ben Marcus, the guy I mentioned before. But it's good stuff. If you like that kind of thing. If you like Pynchon, DeLillo, Ben Marcus, and so on. I guess those are the people she gets compared to a lot. But yeah, strong recommends for both. Probably read the novel first, I would say. What do you think?
It's almost Halloween. Just thought I'd let you know that. So I'll recommend, I think my favorite horror movie, actually this isn't true. One of my favorite horror movies, I've got a lot of favorite horror movies, is probably The Host. And I was just thinking about it earlier. I'm going to recommend The Host. I'm sure a lot of people already know about The Host. I assume they do. The Bong Joon-ho movie that I think is his best movie. Yes, I like it better than Parasite.
Craziness.
Oh no. That is about a
river monster.
A river monster that's caused by like ecological stuff ignored by the government. And it's kind of like its undertones is kind of talking about how the South Korean government obfuscates the United States involvement in South Korean politics. But I think it's a really great horror movie / adventure flick. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I like it a lot. I definitely wouldn't say it's my favorite. I don't even know if I would say second favorite.
It might be my favorite. It just like it. I like it. I mean, I like all of his movies, but it's just, for me, the most enjoyable of them.
Yeah. It also stars, and I feel bad, I can't fucking remember Korean actors' names very well for some reason, but the guy who's in like all of his movies, he plays the dad in Parasite. He's also the dad in The Host, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good rec there. It's a fun movie. I didn't even think about Halloween. I should have done something Halloween-y. Although this book I recommended is weird. I guess it's a little scary in that way. Some parts of it. Yeah, that'll be it for today then, right?
Yeah, that's adios,
amigos.
See you later.
Come all of you good workers, good news to you I'll tell, of how the good old Union has come in here to dwell. Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? They say in Harlan County there are no neutrals there. You'll either be a Union man or a thug for J.H. Blair. Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Oh, workers, can you stand it? Oh, tell me how you can. Will you be a lousy scab or will you be a man? Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Don't listen to the bosses, don't listen to their lies. Us workers never had a chance unless we organize. Tell me, which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on?